Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel. Where each and every week I show people how to make things on the lathe. Now I have done a lot of soapstone inlays. I've worked with soapstone for a number of years, probably over 20 years. But I've never actually taken a block of soapstone, mounted it on the lathe, and turned it and made it into something. So that's going to be this video. It should be interesting. I definitely will probably have lots of inlay material when I'm done with this. But I've got 3 pieces over on the casting bench. So let's head over there. We'll have a look at those. And I'll tell you why or why not I want to use what I'm going to use in this video. So here are the 3 stones that I have in my inventory. Over the years I've bought these. These all come from Sculptural Supply in Toronto. That's where I bought these from many years ago. I don't even remember what I paid for them. I remember the shipping was high because of the weight of them. But we've got a block of serpentine. This I believe is pink alabaster, and this is white alabaster. And this is where, of course, I just would smash off pieces and inlay it in my work. But you know, yeah, really kind of interested to see if we can turn something out of this and what that process is going to entail. The problem with this is that I don't have enough of it. I've got a great big kind of piece missing here, so you know, there isn't really a whole lot that we could do. Maybe a 2-inch high bowl, but you know, that's not really what I'm going for. Although, and the other thing too is, you know, it's very bland looking. At least this this pink stuff here, it's got some grain running through it, and actually, as an inlay, I absolutely hate the look of this because it's just a very light pink color. But with the veining through it, I think that it's actually going to look nice when it's polished. So the alabaster is out. The other thing with the serpentine is you can see this, I'll call it a fissure right here, where these 2 pieces come together. So, you know, this is kind of sketchy to turn because it could fly apart. There are ways of stabilizing these stones, but I can see how it runs right down through here, and it actually looks like it might be even quartz. So, you know, that's another reason not to use it, because you can't turn quartz. It's just too hard. Yeah, Sculptural Supply in Toronto is where I got these stones. Maybe in the future, if I'm going to go with this one, so if it works, then maybe we can attempt to turn this, but I'll have to see if I can get away from this fault line that runs through here, because you can actually see, you can catch your fingernail in some of these cracks. So that's out. So that leaves us, we'll call this alabaster, the pink alabaster. So what I want to do with this piece is flatten it, and on both sides, maybe we'll run it through the drum sander after I've got a nice flat spot. We'll take it over, round it on the bandsaw, and then we'll get our glue blocks on. I don't want to push on this with steel because it's fragile and I don't want it to break off, so it's not real safe to do that. So we'll put glue blocks on either side of it, and that way when we use the live center and the drive center, we'll pinch it like this. It's not going to destroy the stone, and it should be safer. And of course, we'll use one of them as our glued on tenon. So first things first, I think if I've got a flat-ish enough, yeah, that's not too bad. I might run that through the bandsaw first, and then we'll figure it out from there. So in order to cut this stuff, I thought that I would try a metal blade. I figured that a metal blade would be far superior to a wood blade. But as I get into this, you can see right away that I'm having issues with this. I'm pretty sure that this is the blade that I used to cut the steel strut with when I put up my dust collection lines and air compressor lines. So I'm a little surprised that it won't cut it. Well, it doesn't seem to really want to cut it. The blade still seems sharp. I guess it's just going to be a slow process. When this stuff comes out of the quarry, I'm going to assume that they're using diamond saws and, you know, all kinds of Gucci kit to cut these pieces of rock and get them out. Yeah, I was saying soapstone in the beginning. This is alabaster 100%. Anyway, we're going to stick with the bandsaw here. We'll eventually get it, but, you know, I'll have to change up the blade. I'm very curious to see if it's still going to cut this metal or not. Well, looks like I ruined that blade. I caught a ton of the strut with it without any issue, so she's garbage. Let me swap that out and I'll be right back. We're going to change this out to a 3 teeth per inch bi-metal saw blade, which means it cuts metal or wood, and hopefully stone. For whatever reason, this seemed to cut the stone actually fairly easy. When I first started with it, I was like, wow, that's impressive. You can see some fault lines in there that, you know, hopefully those aren't going to give us any issues moving forward. But this 3 teeth per inch blade really actually cut this stone quite nicely. I don't know if there are some teeth missing on it afterwards, but it still didn't really stop its function. After I get done rounding it here in the future, you'll see that, you know, it is taking me longer to get through this. And that is a pretty stone. That's going to look really nice when it's polished. So, you know, in order to not run this through the drum sander 1,000 times, I figured that I would try and, you know, make a flat spot on both the top and the bottom, and then hopefully, you know, just we're not spend so much time at the drum sander. But you certainly can tell that some of the pieces in this are quite fragile, which was concerning starting off. So this is my Supermax drum sander. Absolutely love this drum sander. It's only let me down a couple of times in probably the 6 years or 8 years that I've owned it. And I'm using 60 grit to take this stone down. Well, what do you think? I think when that's polished, it should look quite nice. But there's always a but, isn't there? There's some cracks running like this. And it's very hard to determine how deep they are. I can see it come down along to here. So we're near the end of the day here. I think I'll tape this off and I'll just pour a whole bunch of thin CA glue and hopefully it goes down in there and solidifies and, you know, turns this into a solid blank. It may not be a thing, but if I don't do this, I can also see a crack running right along here. Anyway, it may not be a thing, but, you know, if I don't try and do something about it, it's going to be a thing. Because that's just the way my luck is. First things first, I'm going to dump it on this crack here. It looks like it's really tight together, so I don't even know if this is going to do anything or not. Yeah, it didn't seem to take any of it. I should mention that we're using the new Flash Bond Thin from Designer Epoxy. Yeah, that didn't look like it penetrated at all, so that's good. Let me set that with the accelerator. Sorry, you may hear my AC unit running in the back. When I came here, it was 32 degrees Celsius, so it's pretty warm. Now, the reason why I want to put this on now is so that, you know, I want it to weep in as far as it can, and then we'll carry on with this tomorrow. We are going to be cutting these corners off, anything along here. So, you know, again, hoping that it's not going to be an issue. And again, it looks like it's not going in. It looks like it's just kind of sitting there. So hopefully that's just right near the top here. And it's not something we're going to need to worry about. Yeah, it's not going in. All right, well, I'm going to set it with the accelerator. I can't tell if there's anything wrong here or here. but I don't see anything. We're going to leave that be. See you guys tomorrow. I just want this to, I know for sure we get in here, this is going to, that glue is going to weep out. So anyway, we'll carry on tomorrow. Okay, so before we started here, off camera, I just ran this through the drum sander again, just to get rid of that CA glue that was sitting on top of here. Yeah, let's draw this out and get it trimmed up, and then we'll put our glue blocks on. Looking back at it now, I probably should have rounded this first, and then I might have been able to expose any cracks on the side of it and then fix them before we went on to the lathe. But you know, as they say, live and learn. Yeah, I mean, there did seem to be harder spots in the stone than other, which I'm assuming is normal. And you can tell that either the blade is getting dull at the very end when I just about to finish here, or that was a section in the stone that was actually a lot harder than the rest. But overall, I mean, it's cutting it pretty nice. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty thing if you can keep it together. That's probably the big problem when it's on the lathe and things are spinning. when you're dealing with a whole bunch of cracks. But yeah, you can see it really slowed down here. But again, maybe the blade was, you know, on its last legs at this point. There we go. Once we get our waste blocks put on each side of this, it will be ready for the lathe. So I did blow the stone off. This is hot melt glue. As you can see, lots of volume here. I figured the weight of the stone and the chuck and the other stone that I had on hand to put on it for a weight would be more than enough. Didn't have to pinch it between centers. It is important to try and center this best you can, especially since you're dealing with stone and not wood. So I'm just going to trim up these glued on tenons. Well, one's a tenon and one technically isn't. It's just a block to push on. So as you can see, this is going to be a dusty affair. Yeah, my workshop was completely covered in stone dust. And you know, first indications are, hey, this may work out. Long way to go yet though. I was really worried how the carbide cutter that's mounted on the Hercules. This is the number 3 Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems. And I was a little worried how this was going to cut the stone. Again, this is all new to me, so I just didn't know how it was going to go. But you know what? The stone cut beautifully. I did try the gouge on it here, the Ellsworth gouge. Took a couple of passes and that was it. She was done. So definitely carbide is pretty much the only way to go when cutting this stone. Well, you can use high-speed steel, but you know, you're going to be sharpening lots. That's for sure. And once I mounted this piece in the chuck, yeah, there was definitely going to be some issues here. I think we're going to have to use epoxy to hold this. And the other thing we're going to do is use some denatured alcohol, clean this really, really good, blow everything out, and try this again. I'm sure I'm probably going to be able to just knock that one right off. So the old problem is I've got now is I got to run this through the drum sander and flatten this again because we got a little hump to deal with. I want this nice and flat. I need good adhesion, so. Yeah. It's funny, I can see little crystals embedded in this. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up or not. We'll figure it out one way or another. So note to self, do not use hot melt glue when you're trying to attach stones to wooden blocks, because apparently it just doesn't seem to work. Yeah, after thinking about it after this, I'm like, yeah, epoxy is probably the only thing I should have used here. Now, instead of using denatured alcohol, I'm going to use acetone. Acetone is a stronger cleaner. If this doesn't work, I don't know what we would have tried. Maybe thick CA glue, but so yeah, we're going to use the fast cure epoxy here. By the time I had edited that morning, by the time I got down there, I'm like, well, this is probably going to be it for the day. So by the time the stuff cures, the day will be over. So anyway, I just mixed up, I can't remember how much it was, maybe 3 ounces of it, 4 ounces of it. And then slathered it on, lots of it, just to make sure that we were going to have a successful adhesion this time around. Trying to center it best I can. Not exactly a huge thing here, but definitely want to try and center it just to make sure that your tenon isn't too small afterwards, because these blocks aren't real large to begin with. I know that the fast cure doesn't really make that much of an appearance on my channel. Usually I only use it when I've got to fill in really large areas, but it's great for this here. All right, well, I guess we'll see you tomorrow. And hopefully this works. The only other thing that we've got to try is thick CA glue. I'm optimistic that this is going to work, but I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Shall we try this again? Now, surprisingly enough, and I was surprised by this, you could pretty much use the Hercules the same way that you do when you're turning wood. Like push cuts, pull cuts, shear cuts, it all applies to the stone. The only thing is that the stone is really, 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 really dusty. Even with the dust collector right there, it's very dusty. I mean, my workshop was just covered in dust. So this may have been too fast. 750 that's a pretty high RPM, not for an object this size and diameter, but because it's stone. And maybe slower might have been better. Regardless, I do get this turned, but you can see it is just, the dust is crazy coming off here. Had to turn the dust collector on. There was no way that I could run this without the dust collector, because it was just throwing way too much dust. Now, of course, these carbide cutters from Hunter Tool Systems are using cupped cutters, not flat cutters. So if you had a flat cutter, I think that the dust would be kind of thrown straight up in the air, and of course the dust collector would have been able to collect more of it. And there's a first indication as to what we might have if we can keep it together here. But because the cutter is cupped, then it tends to want to throw the dust right at you. And so that was the only thing. Like, I had to stop regularly and kind of get the dust off of my shield and off of me, and so on and so on and so on. But we've got a nervous point coming up here where we're going to mount this in the chuck and see if it's going to stay attached to the wooden block or not. I will say that it is fun to work with materials like this. Learning something new on the lathe is always a good thing. I absolutely love working on a lathe. I mean, I just can't imagine doing anything else at this point in my life. But any chance that I can get to learn something new on the lathe, I'll take it. And one thing that I'm just not a real keen fan of, and it's not that I don't appreciate this kind of work, but this segmented work is, it's just really not for me. It's a lot of table saw work. I think you're on the table saw more than you are on the lathe. But we will in the future, no doubt, venture down that path, be it large or small work. And but this was a really cool, fun experience. I like to be challenged when I'm on the lathe. And you just, yeah, it's just knocking the dust off me all the time here. But like I said, if that was just a flat, straight cutter, I think that it would have been thrown straight up, and the dust collector would have got a lot of it. But I'm still kind of shocked at how well the stone was cut with that carbide cutter. It was just like butter. It cut it very easy, and it never rotated the cutter during this whole turning. Well, what do you think so far? It's cutting beautifully. Not hard to do at all. We've got some issues here. There's some cracks along here. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up or not. Got a crack running all along here. Comes down. Looks like there's one coming up from here. Yeah, that crack keeps going. And there's something going across here too. So what is the solution to this? I think that if this survives, that it's actually going to look pretty nice. But I really would like to take the inside out before I do anything, because I don't know how deep these cracks go, and it'd be nice to get them from both sides. The CA glue didn't seem to do anything. It didn't seem to want to penetrate. I could maybe try and make some sort of a, I don't know, some sort of a channel thing like this, fill it with CA glue, and then put it under vacuum to see what it does. How's that going to work? I don't know if the fumes will damage my vacuum pump. That's another consideration. I think I'm just going to keep on taking the inside out. I'm going to move it outboard. We won't have any tailstock support. Well, before I do that, I'm going to put it inboard, and I'm going to make sure that this is good, because we haven't even tested this joint yet on both sides. Well, this is just something pushing on, but let's test this joint, make sure this joint is going to survive before we do anything. So this tenon is different than the ones that I usually make. This time I'm going to incorporate, basically the top part of this tenon is going to be on the top part of the jaws. If your profiles don't match exactly, then I think that you can probably put too much pressure on the bottom of the piece that you're working on and remove it from the waste block. So by doing it this way, it's pushing on the waste block and not the piece. So it looks like epoxy is the way to go. Skip the hot melt glue if you're ever going to attempt something like this, and stick with the epoxy. It seems to really hold quite well, actually. So now we're just going to get rid of that little waste block and proceed to drilling. Another new adventure. I have no idea how this is going to drill. I'm thinking it should be okay though. Surprisingly, it drilled quite nicely. I just a little shocked by this, because these drill bits, these Forstner bits, they're high-speed steel. They're not carbide. When I was done, it actually didn't feel like the edge was taken off them. But with that said, it didn't feel like the edge was gone off the bandsaw blade either. So I may not be able to use these moving forward. I'll have to sharpen them, but. Yeah, another surprise. Go figure that, you can just use a normal Forstner bit and drill alabaster out. But I will say that I am going very slow, and it is actually quite easy to get the drill bit stuck inside of the form. So, you know, back it out regularly. You can see I've got a little box underneath there catching all the little pieces of shavings, or not shavings, the powder that's coming out of this. Again, I don't know why, but I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll give it away. Yeah, if you're interested in this stuff and you live in North America, let me know. I'll probably ship it to you free of charge, because I still have those other pieces that I don't know if I'm ever going to do anything with. There are some pieces there that would probably be big enough to make bottle stoppers with, so I might hold on to the larger ones, but I certainly can give away the smaller ones, and if you want to try this independently, I can ship it to you. Anyway, let me know in the comments. Yeah, there's lots of it there. But again, you can see when I was drilling this stone, you would hit kind of a hard spot in it, and then it would kind of slow down on the drilling, and then all of a sudden it was kind of scary, because it would kind of just push through it and kind of feel like it's on the verge of exploding. Yeah, it's so dusty, man. So I've made the decision that we're going to have to do some filling here with epoxy, because we got some cracks. I was really hoping that I wasn't going to have to do all this, but yeah. So anyway, I started drilling there. It was 1 inch and 1/16, and this goes up to 1 3/4 to 2 inch. I think it's 2 inch actually. Once that initial hole was done, this again drilled quite nicely. But you can, to get the material out of there, because the stone is so heavy, just rotating the piece by hand, the drill would auger it out into that little catch piece that I had there. So I want to be able to fill this up as high as I can, so I'm going to use hot melt glue to build up a little rim around the top of this. And we're going to use the Pro Series, that way I can carry on with this the next day, because now we're starting to get into production times here, and you know, hopefully this is going to be ready for Friday. We started mixing this stuff, and you know, in order to try and match that color, you've got to really put a lot in there. I don't know how many I end up putting in here. Anyway, it's a lot. Very fleshy color. I just hope that I've got enough here for this opening. Perfect. A little bit left over. All right, vacuum chamber coming up next. So here we go. I did tape down below the chuck, so hopefully if there's if there's any overflow, which I'm betting there's going to be, then it doesn't get down in the chuck components, because that's not good. All right, let's see how we do here. I know that I didn't show it, but where that piece of tape comes up the side, there's a pretty decent sized crack there that actually opened up. So that's the main reason why I'm doing this. Now, one other consideration here is, so this is a 2-to-1, and a 2-to-1 is thin, as you know, if you've been around for a while, you know that. But the more of that powder you add to this, the thicker you're going to make it. And this is actually a good color. Like in the end, it is very hard to see this epoxy line at all. So that worked out. I did have too much in there, so that's why I decided to take some of it out and make sure that, you know, I really don't want it dripping down and getting into the chuck components, because that's no good. But, you know, the thicker you make this, the less likelihood it's going to flow into areas, so that's why I didn't add more of it to try and match the color more than I already did. Well, that's all we can do today. I'm going to take this and put it in the pressure pot, and we'll see you in there tomorrow. Fingers crossed this is going to fill any holes that are down there. There does seem to be a fair bit of air coming out of it, so you know, I think that this stone is on the porous side. So anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Let's hope it works. Well, good morning. Probably hear my furnace running in the background there. So when I put this in the pressure pot last night, it was full right to the top of the hot melt glue, so it definitely has dropped off. So hopefully that has gone all through this and filled in any cracks, but I guess we'll find out here. So I'm just going to drill this out and I'm going to remove the tape. I'm sure this crack is probably filled in now. That's the hope. And anyway, after that, after we get it drilled out, we'll move it outboard and see what we're looking at. I'll throw that in my hot melt glue electric frying pan. Yeah, I can't feel anything, so I think that it's all filled in now. All right, let's hope that's all the issues that we have. And so yet again, I just pulled that ring of hot melt glue off. It hardly even stuck at all. So yeah, definitely epoxy is the way to go here. Anyway, once we get this drilled, we'll be able to move it outboard. And if you're new, the reason why I prefer to turn outboard is because I'm left-handed. This lathe has left-hand threads on the outboard end, so it's more comfortable for me to turn on instead of working on the inside of the lathe like you normally would. So I'm going to true up the outside first. We're still at 750. Hoping that whenever I could, I stayed out of the throw of the lathe. And if you don't understand what that means is I tried not to stand directly in front of the work, because if this does come apart and you're doing 750, then, you know, they might find pieces of this on the moon. So you definitely don't want to get hit by any of this stuff if it comes off. You know, if the thing splits in half, yeah, like it's not going to be a good day if it hits you. So if this was a good solid stone, I probably wouldn't be too concerned about it. But in this case, I just tried to stay out of the throw of the lathe whenever I could. So yeah, more frustration. This is on the other side. That all of a sudden has opened up. I can't remember this. I think this is the one that I fixed. Can't do another pour for that, so we're gonna have to throw some CA glue on there. So back again with the thin flash bond from Designer Epoxy. Pretty much this is the only option I've got right now, or else this video is going to be late. So you'll see me constantly. I'll take this stone down a little ways, and then I'll saturate it again with the CA glue, and just so on and so on until we get done here. It just goes to show you that it's probably very, very important for stone selection. Yeah. Again, this is not an area that I am knowledgeable in at all. I just know that it's very hard to do this kind of work and have cracks in stones. So some of the videos that I have watched, they break them apart and use the dust and glue them back together. But anyway, hopefully this holds. See you in 10 minutes. So as you watch me take out the inside of this enclosed alabaster bowl, I did mute the volume because it was just really, really high-pitched whine. And anyway, it's pretty routine, to be honest with you. But I will briefly talk about last week's project. And I basically combined two pieces of maple together and used Blue Laguna. And of course, when the epoxy cured, it came up short. I had to do another pour, so I did the orientation of it differently, and I think that it actually worked quite nicely. So thanks to those who watched that video, and if you did miss it, I will link it at the end of this one. And other news in regards to our home, the construction has finally started on that. The excavator, this is the second day that it's been there digging the hole, and so I've been filming there and trying to get this done and work in the workshop. So it's been a bit of a chore recently, trying to get in the last couple of days here anyway. The funny thing about the site, so when they dug the hole for my workshop, it predominantly was gravel, and the house is literally 30 feet on the other side of it, and it's all clear sand. There's every now and then they may find a round boulder in it, small boulder, but other than that, it's pure sand. So because of that, they've had to cut the hole back larger so that it doesn't collapse in on the guys when they're doing the footing and putting the ICF foundation in. So the hole is absolutely huge. It's massive. And I am filming it, and I will do a video on that as well. So the new home build series is what probably I'll call it. So look for that. No, I don't know. We'll have to see. I might incorporate the digging and the foundation, completed foundation. So might be a little while here, another week or more before that happens. But yeah, happy days. We're finally getting the house under construction here. Besides dumping lots of CA glue on this repeatedly, just to make sure that things stay together, you can tell that it's not a huge bowl by any stretch of the imagination. I am glad to see that epoxy glued on tenon seems to be working fine. I do believe that one of the keys to success, I should mention that this is the Badger Cub straight tool. Down inside of that, on the very far edge right there, the cutter from the Hercules has a hard time maintaining contact there, and that's just the way, the geometry of the tool, and essentially the shape of this form. Where that the Badger Cub straight tool has the cutter exposed, basically, I would say easily, probably 70% of it is exposed. So you can go right down in there and work in those areas. So love this tool ever since Mike Hunter sent it to me. I do recommend getting this tool if you're going to do anything like this, or any epoxy turning. Well, really any turning at all. I mean, it depends on your skill level. I'm a gouge guy. I know that you don't see a lot of it here on this channel, but if I'm working with straight wood, I'm predominantly going to use a gouge. So anyway, once I was happy with the wall thickness down in there with the Cub straight tool, went back to the Hercules, and hopefully we'll be able to move on to sanding here soon. I eventually decided to get out the vacuum cleaner. I knew that using the vacuum cleaner that it was going to plug it up very quickly, so that's why I didn't want to use it. But once I was working in this enclosed space, I was really having a hard time getting the dust out without really truly blowing it all through the workshop. So I know there's probably some people saying, why is he using his vacuum cleaner? That's the main reason. But eventually we'll get this and we will move on to sanding. So I'm just going to clean up the outside. So one of the benefits of working with stone is that it doesn't move. Sometimes you'll be working with some wood pieces and they move. Well, that's not the case with stone. So that is certainly a benefit. So I'm going to start sanding here. I'm going to start at 60 grit using the 3.5 inch double disc and go all the way to 800. And of course, after that, we will buff it like we usually do. And that will give us a surface 1,000 to 1,200 grit thereabouts. Again, stone sanded beautifully, but it did create an awful amount of, waste material on the floor. Just showing the floor sweep in action. The dust is so heavy that I had to try and block off the front of it so that there was enough suction power there to pick that stone up. So that's why I'm using that box. That's the Triple E buffing compound. See me use it here virtually every week. The great thing about this piece is, we're not going to have to put multiple coats of finish on it because it's stone. I did use I used 3 different buffs here in order to get this buffed to where the standard that I want it to be at. When this is done, we'll use some denatured alcohol to clean the surface, just to get rid of any of that compound that remains. This will be a new one for us. Gloss finishing wax from Hampshire Sheen. Yeah, hardly ever use this. It does say that it's food and toy safe. Got to give this some sort of protection. Now, I probably could have polished this out. To be honest with you, I don't really have the polishing equipment to do so, since this is kind of a one-off type affair. So I applied it, let it sit for 5 minutes, and then I came back and buffed it off with the shop towel. And it only needed one coat, and that's the great thing about working with stone. And you know, maybe didn't even need anything, but I thought it was best to give it some sort of protection. There, I turned off that big light because it's really washing out the color. Check that out. Wow. I'm very, very surprised that this survived. The inside is nice, as nice as it is on the outside. Yeah, when I seen those cracks in this piece, I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do this. Like, you know, they're still there, but you know, they seem solid. Like I don't know what to say. And that's going to be it. It's the end of the day. I'll do the foot here tomorrow, and we'll finish this video up. Let me know what you think. It is a lot cooler in this form than in the powdered form, because in the powdered form it's just pink. There you can almost see like layers, rings in a tree. That's pretty cool. Awesome. All right, see you tomorrow. So this is also going to be another first for me, using the vacuum chuck to do the bottom on a stone piece. But anyway, it seemed to work just fine too. All right, well, that's going to do it for the video. Thank you so much to those who have watched it, especially those that have watched it all the way through. I really do appreciate it. And of course, special shout out to the members. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for your support. I will mention I only sand at the bottom to 320. And if you want to be a member of my channel, it's $2.99 a month to do so. Let's have a last little chat about this beauty little bowl. To be perfectly honest, I did not think that this would survive. Once I seen all of those cracks, I was like, uh-oh, we're in trouble here. But somehow it has managed to stay together. Yeah, with all the veining and the way this looks, I think it's awesome. I think it is. But I've probably talked about this already in a voiceover. But when it's all crushed up and pinky, I do not like it. It's not an inlay. I did a bowl once, and I don't know how many shows I brought it to before somebody bought it. And this woman comes in. I mean, just goes to show you that, you know, that just because you don't like it doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to love it. So that's just kind of the way this industry is. So anyway, I stayed away from doing anything with this stone after that. But anyway, the size on this, I'll get this written down here, is 6.5 inches at its widest dimension and 3.5 inches tall. It's, you know, my typical 1/2 inch, maybe a little less than that actually. Yeah, probably 3/8 of an inch maybe. So, you know, all those cracks that were down near the base, since this was being held by the base, that's where I thought we were going to have issues. I never even seen the cracks that went right through it like this. And I'll try and get one here, point it out to you, like they've virtually disappeared. Yeah. There's one right here. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up or not. And it should be right on the other side of it. Yeah, it's a very, very faint crack right here. After the wax went on there, it virtually disappeared. I did sign with my pen like I usually do. Now the problem is I was worried about the wax smearing all the ink. So, you know, I let it dry for a while and then I just kind of rubbed my finger on it and it smudged a little bit. So what I did was I took a little bit of denatured alcohol and just kind of wiped the surface to get rid of any of the excess ink, and then no more would come off. So then I knew that when I put the wax on the bottom that it would be fine. Anyway, this is going to be going into our personal collection. I can't sell my first stone bowl or alabaster bowl. The great thing about alabaster, when you have a good solid piece, is the thinner it gets, the more translucent it gets. And the problem, I mean, it's just, you're just on the verge of having the thing explode every second. So, you know, as far as this is concerned, this is plenty thick for me. Maybe next time, if there's a next time, we will go thinner, and maybe we'll even try and incorporate some wood on the top of it or on the base. But anyway, let me know what you think about this. I absolutely love this, and hopefully you guys do as well. Yeah, just a little weird. Almost like rings in a tree, doesn't it? Weird but cool. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the next 3-gallon giveaway at 145,000 subscribers when we get there. And of course, I've got their fantastic summer sale on right now. So head on down to the description and click on those links and you can go to them. And of course, all my other sponsors are down there as well. If you need some stuff, head on down there and put some money back in your pocket. Now, this stuff, every surface in this workshop is probably got alabaster dust on it. So that's one consideration if you're going to be doing this stuff. I would not think about doing this without some sort of respirator on. And yeah, I mean, and it's also probably not good for bearings. So I was thinking about this when it was on my lathe, that hopefully that stuff stays out of the bearings on my lathe, because that certainly can probably do a number on the bearings. But regardless, I think it's really cool, and I think that we'll probably end up doing not a lot more of this, but certainly checking out some other types of stones and seeing what they look like. All right, well, that's it. I'm out of here. Have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for stopping by and watching this video. I really do appreciate it. And if you do like this content, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. That would be greatly appreciated. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend. I'll see you next week.